Hey, everybody, welcome to our season 2, episode 8. This is a real special one today because for sure everybody is going to like this. Okay, absolutely, you'll like this because it's a special dedication, and our dedication is going to be the hemp world, the marijuana world, and its hospitality approach. But before I start, let me bring the Man of Steel in. How you doing, sir?
Hello, Jimmy. What's going on?
How's everything going, man?
Good. Busy week. It feels like it was only 100 degrees like a couple weeks ago, and now all of a sudden we're in the 40s.
Absolutely. Wow. Definitely. You're telling the truth.
Yeah,
That's for sure. That's for sure. I know that it's been a change of weather that actually has been amazing change. You forget because it was a week late. Usually we get that in like the time of Halloween, and it was a week late, and all of a sudden a 40-degree difference in one night. So I was like, wow. But hey, it's the way it is. It's when everybody starts getting sick, right?
Well, let's not say that.
Yes, I know that for sure. All right. So what we're gonna do is I definitely want to bring our guest in because this is something that I've been wanting to do and get more involved with as we go along, and we're going to talk about that. And I'm going to definitely bring in somebody that we know for a very, very long time, Mark and I, and we've known. Wow, she was been around when I started this whole thing with the JVC world. It was one of my first accounts, actually my second one. And let me bring in Jen right here. Hey, what's happening? She's muted, huh? I think you're muted.
I can't hear her. Jen, you're muted if you can hear us.
I'm unmuted. Hi.
Okay. Perfect.
Hi, guys.
Hey, what's up?
Nice to see you, Mark. Jimmy, thank you so much for having us on the show today.
Absolutely. Let me bring
a bunch of important stuff while you were unmuted.
Yeah, right. What did you say that we missed? Okay, let me bring Andrew in. And let me bring Aaron in. There we go.
Hey, guys.
And
hello.
Let me bring your little thing here in here so everybody knows who you are. Look at that. Okay. So I love this, man. I feel like I'm a pro or something, right?
Yeah,
all right. Dude. So with that said, okay, what we're going to do is I want you guys to really explain, because this is a whole different world. A lot of people are aware of it, but a lot of people really don't know, that are in the outside world. And, eventually we all know that we're going to be looking at the, which I believe right now they want to call it hemp, but everybody can call it whatever they want, marijuana, hemp, whatever the regulations are going to say, but it's going to be introduced into food and beverage. I think it is now. Right. As far as, chefs are going to start cooking with it and everything. And I want you guys to explain, connect and explain how it started, Jen, and what your idea was. And, we go back a long time. Anything you want to say, let the world know. It's your show. Go for it.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for that warm intro. I'll kind of explain who Connect Hospitality is, who I am, and then who my partners are who are also joining us here today. So my name's Jen T, and I grew up in the Las Vegas nightlife and hospitality world. I started, feels like 100 years ago, but it's going on like 16 years ago with the company called The Light Group, and grew up with that industry with the guys here, Jimmy and Mark. Like they said, we all go way back. My partner Aaron worked there for a little while too. So we kind of all cut our teeth on the nightlife industry. I started working in the cannabis industry with a national media publication. And while I was working with them, this was in 2017, I noticed that there was a missing link, which was a bridge really between traditional hospitality, food and beverage industry, or even just overall guest hospitality, and then cannabis retail. So we created the company Connect Hospitality to bring our skills and set of services into the cannabis world. So what we do as Connect is we do everything from 360 marketing plans and kind of like cannabis branding and marketing, that kind of development services. And then we also do venue and event development and operational services. So we'll do everything from, Andrew has probably, I think, Bud tended like 10,000 private parties, all the way to a full-scale cannabis festival or even a standalone cannabis venue. So that's kind of the scope of what Connect does. We've been here since 2018. We're going into our third year operating. The team that comprises Connect is myself, Jen T, and then my partners who are joining us today, which is Aaron Soffer. He's our general counsel and CFO. And then Andrew Mieure, who's with also Top Shelf Bud Tending. He is our director of cannabis operations and all things consumption and events world.
Excellent. Welcome, gentlemen. How you
Thank
doing?
you. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for having us. Always look forward to getting to impart some knowledge on these topics whenever I have the chance. You know, that's what that little ESQ at the end of my name means. I did pass the bar exam here in Nevada way back when.
All right.
But now, as with many attorneys, they start out doing litigation, but I quickly learned that not my cup of tea. So I got back into the business world where I felt most comfortable. And then, with the passage, general trend nationwide that we've been seeing over the last, 10, 15 years is slowly, state by state, legislation, laws getting passed to allow for cannabis consumption. Now, unfortunately, we still have to deal with the fact that cannabis or marijuana, as we delve into the more intricate details of, the differentiations between, what is cannabis, what is marijuana, what is hemp, right? We have the cannabis plant up at the top, and then there's different strains. Hemp and marijuana are two different strains of cannabis. And, most recently, as of 2018, with that Farm Bill, 2018 Farm Bill, they descheduled hemp from being a controlled substance, which, I'll talk a little bit more in depth as we, go through this podcast. I don't want to steal the floor from everybody right now. I could talk for hours on this. But yeah, I slowly, as legislation caught up with public sentiment, as it stands right now, I think it's about 68% of the country's on board with some sort of legislation, legalization, decriminalization. There's so many different ways to discuss and categorize, kind of what we as a country are facing. And it's truly a green wave, and it's exciting. But there is a lot to be cognizant of. And so, part of a good part of what we do at Connect is not only handle the operations side, but also kind of that administrative side on the back end, ensuring that everything that whether it's an event, a small scale event, large scale event, that everything is in compliance, right? We always got to be in compliance.
Safety and compliance.
It's never a free for all, unfortunately.
It's true. It's 100% true. And you found out that I found out that, I've always been interested when the world comes into my kind of world, your world comes into my kind of world, when we start going to the food and beverage safety and all that, right? Then I found out the other day that one major organization that regulates one thing doesn't regulate food yet, right? And it's local, and so that means really wow. But it'll all change. Like I was talking to Andrew a little bit. We're sure it's going to change eventually, but in the meantime, that's why it's important for guys like you. And I have no problem, make it public. I'll help you out every which way I can. I have no problem being part of it with you guys to get that into some type of regulation, because as far as the food and beverage world, because of course there's a lot of logistics with risk assessment and risk management that go along with this. But I know down the line, and this is Vegas, and you guys, if I'm off the wall, you guys let me know, but there's probably going to be restaurants down the line with this kind of stuff.
That's what we're trying to build.
Eventually, yeah. Natural evolution of things, yeah.
With the current laws, the way they stand, everything is kind of fragmented right now. So we have kind of a conflict of federal law, state law, and local law. And a lot of these ordinances at a local level are what are moving forward quicker than anything else. And then that is dependent then on the state passing something prior to that. So it's kind of this weird little web that's kind of interweaved in between everything. And with how I met Jen and the Connect crew originally, we were actually at the city council meetings for Vegas, looking into lounges when that first got talked about, to bring cannabis into the local lounges. And that's how I met a ton of people. And when I started my journey in Denver, Colorado back in 2014, we were doing parties there that were super underground, weren't 100% up to code, I guess you could say. And
That's
statute of limitations is told.
That's
so
where
we're
I
good.
got, that's where I got started. And it wasn't that it was illegal. It was always a gray area, right? We were serving cannabis to people, but we didn't have anything telling us that we couldn't, and there wasn't anything telling us explicitly that we could with what rules. So doing that for so long, I figured out that we needed a set of standards, and we needed safety protocols going into this to not get people sick. Because, man, there's some horror stories I have for you that I could tell you, man. I would walk into some of these parties and they would have a bong set up for people to use, and there would be literally 100 people cycling in and out using this same piece with no cleaning in between it. And just absolutely disgusting things going on. And I was tired of seeing that, so I had to move on. And I thought Vegas was going to be the place, ground zero for cannabis hospitality, and it still is one of the most untouched portions of the cannabis industry so far.
Yeah. And, it's amazing that you said that, because it goes into leeway of what happened to me. No names mentioned or locations, whatever, but I was asked at the very beginning of this, okay, at the very beginning when it started getting really popular here, can you come look at it from your point of view? Because my wife's in the medical field, so she can handle the medical side of it. You know what I mean? So can you handle the side of checking things out as far as regulation, even though nothing's really covered at that. So I went in and I looked things over, and I'm looking over things, and, I'm making notes of everything. So, and this person is a friend, so he comes up to me and he says, okay, really tell me what you think of what the facility is like. So I told him on the side, you know what? You really want to know? He said, yeah. I says, maybe you'd be safer to buy it on the street because that's the very beginning. Nobody had any regulation like you're saying. So what do we do? How do we jump into it? So it's a different world, and it's important. And I agree with you 100% what you're saying. Now I'm glad that you have the state, right? The state regulates something. Now you have a guideline, which is state, right? So feds have their thing. Now you have a state. Before there was not a state. They were developing. And so that's a good portion of it, because now you have a guideline. You know what I mean? That's the regulatory guideline.
It's very
and
interesting
even with,
too. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, even with that said, at the state level, things are constantly changing. Here in Nevada, we just had a hefty transfer of power, effectively, from the Department of Taxation over to the Cannabis Control Board, and it's always in flux. Just to piggyback off of that, Jimmy. Yeah, go ahead, Andrew.
I was going to say it's just basically a patchwork of regulations that states put together, and then states will copy one another. I do a lot of application writing, and that whole process, you can even see in each regulation for each state, like Illinois, most recently, that was who I worked on, a few dispensaries out there. And you can see in the regulations, they took specifically pieces from Colorado, pieces from Missouri's legislation, pieces from California's legislation. They stick it all together. So it's kind of a weird mixture we're dealing with, and like Aaron's saying, it's never a set thing, and it's like water, man. It's always flowing.
Yep.
Wow.
Hey, especially with elections too. Not only are these newfangled cannabis control boards, not only are these in and of themselves new creatures, but then you actually have to staff them, and they're appointees by the governor. And so, again, if we think it's relatively calm right now, just give it time. It'll be in flux once again. So
Exactly. Well, like in the food world, and Mark knows this, he does this every day too. And he does, you have your FDA guidelines, which sets forth everything. And then each state follows their guidelines, which can make it more stringent, which here, the Southern Nevada Health District went real big and are very strict. And, everybody takes it if there's one code, though, like a federal code will cover everything. But how many years has that been in place? You see what I mean? Like you guys were saying, this is all new world. I mean, you know, the one in Nevada, was this set up based on the federal, or was it their own thing? How did that get set up? Do you guys know?
The compliance
You're
board?
talking about with the
compliance board
CCB?
versus federal guidelines, right?
Well, so federally, we got to remember marijuana is still a Schedule 1 controlled substance. Mind you, cocaine's a Schedule 2 substance. So yeah, that's how the feds really, that's how they treat it. Now, obviously, we've had the Cole memo in the past, which, you know, essentially said that federal law enforcement, they're not going to spend any funds prosecuting those who engage in the trafficking of cannabis in those states where it's legal by the state, you know, but still they rescinded that Cole memo under the Trump administration. So again, there's constant flux. You'll hear me say that I sound like a broken record, but there's nothing more true there. So then when it comes to the actual state legislation, yeah, I mean, as Andrew said, you find these states that are just picking and choosing from all these other states that predated, their legislation predated whichever the state at issue is. And so then you are left with this patchwork, and in some cases it works, but then, hey, we're a litigious society, and then you find yourself with challenges in the court system and whatnot. So, yeah, I mean, to that effect, there's not one set of universal laws, if you will, as it pertains to marijuana. It is different. As soon as you cross, you take the 15 south, drive half hour, and you know you're across the state line into California. Whole set of laws, and well, let's hope that you haven't actually brought any cannabis with you across state lines, because then now that's a federal offense, because remember, it's still federally illegal.
Right.
And so go ahead, Jen.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get a big flux in the right direction, because I actually heard this morning or last night that they are putting the MORE Act up for vote in December. And that will allow for, it's like the most comprehensive cannabis bill that's ever been up for vote. And it will allow for federal descheduling and decriminalization.
That's the key right there, descheduling. Yeah. As soon as it gets descheduled, at least taken off of Schedule 1, even if it gets rescheduled to a Schedule 2, it's at least going to allow for research to be conducted. Because, hey, let's be honest here. We've, for years, been touting all the medicinal benefits of this plant. And essentially, it's in large part all anecdotal up to this point, because there have been relatively few major studies done on a scale that's, you know, necessary to process and acquire all the data that's necessary to, you know, project reliable data from those tests. So, yeah, descheduling or rescheduling from removing marijuana from Schedule 1 down to Schedule 2, or descheduling it altogether. Not likely, but yeah, I mean, that'll significantly impact the public's ability and the private sector's ability to, you know, invest in this industry. Because, right, that's why, look at all of us here talking, we're all in business, right? We all see potential with this plant and its impacts on hospitality specifically, right? This is the new frontier. And so, yeah, what we're missing right now is that link, that our ability to essentially, without having, let's just say, somebody looking over our shoulder at all points in time, looking to see if we're doing anything wrong, as opposed to, you know, when you weigh federal law versus state law, and, you know, you go down that rabbit hole. And so once we get at least some semblance of comprehensive reform on this subject matter, until we get to that point, it is going to be a patchwork.
Yeah, I think even what you were saying about state to state being different. So in our world, which is hospitality, and future world is consumption, public consumption, and food and beverage having a merger, right? A restaurant you can smoke in, a food and beverage venue, an entertainment venue that you can smoke in, a concert venue that you can consume in. When we were working in 2018 and 2019 on the law reform, that's another thing that Connect actually and Top Shelf Bud Tending, when Andrew said we met at City Hall, as we were both there, going to give comment and you know, testimony about what we believe is the future for consumption with the plant. And so when we were doing that, we were able to work at a city level with the city council in the city of Las Vegas on getting an ordinance passed for public consumption. So when they passed the law for us to be able to purchase cannabis, what they didn't pass was a law for you to be able to consume it. So right now, the only place that you can legally consume your cannabis is on private property at a private residence that you basically live at or have permission from the property owner. So how many people that are visiting Vegas are getting that permission or doing that at someone's house, right? Like, exactly. So we were working to create venues that you can do this in. So we got the ordinance passed at a city level. And on May 1st, 2019, that ordinance was to go into an effect that you would be able to, with a whole set of, maybe not exactly where we wanted it to end up, but we got something passed, a whole set of guidelines about how it can be a tasting room, licensed dispensary owner, yada, yada. Well, 5 nights later, the state called an emergency session, and under the cover of night, they passed Assembly Bill 533, which was, again, a very comprehensive cannabis plan for the state of Nevada that included tons of different stuff related to cannabis, from production and retail. Well, what they struck completely was every single line about consumption, and then added in a line that said, no city, town, or county can pass their own laws about consumption of cannabis. So it basically put a hard stop on the entire thing. They also said, we will conduct a study and we'll study consumption over the next year, which of course we all know we're in the middle of COVID, so that probably didn't happen like they planned. Right. But where I'm going with this is the only way that we would have been able to study that is to go to another state that has consumption laws already passed. So we're going and studying models in states that maybe aren't the exact same thing we would do in Vegas, but we're trying to put together data on it. I went on a trip with, it was like 11 different representatives from the legislature and local representatives. We took a trip to San Francisco and we met with the health department out there, and we actually toured quite a few consumption venues to try to garner sentiment and gather data to see how the city and state wants to ultimately move forward. So that was supposed to be happening this year, where we were going to be doing a study, looking at other states and cities and seeing how they're doing the public consumption and the mixing of the cannabis with food and beverage. Unfortunately, all of that got probably put on complete hold because of COVID. So what we're hoping as Connect is to be able to pick up those pieces, and having guys like you want to get involved, you know, other I'll say hospitality pioneers who are touting safety and compliance, and be able to get that study back up and running, where we can say, okay, we're ready to start putting this data together so we know how to confidently move forward with the 2021 legislation session.
Yeah, it's a lot, but when it comes down to it, it's gonna really work out for everybody involved. I mean, it's a lot to play with regulations. I mean, when I was on the Board of Health for many years here in the local health district, you're dealing with regulations all the time. And to pass something that's going on the board has to approve it. The majority says yay, nay, and you guys know how that works. And then it can go on, oh, let's delay it to the next time, the next month, and it can delay. All different things can happen and that kind of thing to get it moving. But no, like you said, Jen, the more people you get involved from all angles for this is when it will work on the other states. What about as far as the edible market, right? Because people can buy it online, right, and consume it here online as long as it's not manufactured or something like that. I mean, I'm learning a lot about different things like that, and you know, the edible market. I mean, that's consumable. I was reading something where USDA may get involved depending on the plant that develops it. I mean, there's a lot of things that are coming in the future, depending on what they do, you know, and you know, there was some talk of some type of, like we just learned about the hemp the other day, but like there's somebody saying that the cannabis can be introduced to some dairy product in some type of milk or something. I mean, it's just way out there, but now that'll bring another type of regulation from another, like the USDA or the FDA. I mean, it's going to grow. And this is where I see it going. Someone's going to have to take the lead and set a guideline somewhere.
Without a doubt. Yeah. And so, I mean, to that point, Jimmy, you're 100% correct. I mean, cannabis, you're going to find cannabis infused products even more so than you already see today, with it still being federally illegal. As soon as it gets descheduled from Schedule 1, and now its applications are going to be more widely available. Yeah, I mean, it's inevitable. It's the natural evolution. And so, I mean, let's not forget, hemp has been, cannabis, the plant, has been used for thousands of years. Our Constitution was written on hemp paper. Okay, so
I didn't know that.
Yeah, exactly. So this isn't something new. All right, the cannabis was only, I mean, the war on drugs in the 60s, 70s. You know, prior to that, there was the Marijuana Tax Act that was back in the 20s or 30s. And then it wasn't until the 70s that it became illegal with the passage of the Controlled Substances Act, when it actually got listed as a Schedule 1 substance. So, yeah, the plant itself has been around for ages, all right, for as long as we can track recorded history. And so now, with that being said, you also mentioned edibles too, Jimmy. So it's important to properly categorize what you're ingesting, okay? Because so we got the cannabis plant. We've been talking about cannabis as a whole. Now there's two strains of the cannabis plant. There's the indica and sativa strains, and then hemp is only one of those strains, okay? So hemp only is from the cannabis sativa strain, all right? Whereas if you go down to indica, indica is only marijuana. So now when you're talking about hemp, and when we talk about hemp-derived CBD, that was a big, dare I say, buzzword. It's not a buzzword, but you know, hemp-derived CBD, that was a major staple of that 2018 Farm Bill, where the federal government delisted hemp-derived CBD from being listed as a scheduled substance on the Controlled Substances Act. Now, what that impact had in effect was it now allowed for, let's look at it foundationally, the growers of hemp. Now they were eligible to go get bank accounts, get crop insurance. It opened up a whole new world to these hemp farmers, okay? So long as the hemp tested below 0.3% THC. And so now we've got, as I mentioned with edibles, we have to look at what you're actually ingesting. Are you ingesting a CBD edible that was produced from hemp-derived CBD that tested under 0.3% THC? So if that's what we're talking about, then yeah, you could buy that online. You could ingest that anywhere. There's nothing illegal about that. All right. Whereas if we're talking about marijuana-infused edibles, well, again, still federally illegal. You can only purchase those items legally, at least. You can only legally purchase those items in states where they have legislation that allows for the consumption of marijuana.
So we're a little bit away from seeing in Las Vegas the sign that says the special for today is spaghetti and marijuana sauce. We're a little bit away from that.
A little bit away. Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, in due time though, because let's not forget, Vegas, we are the mecca of hospitality. And if anybody's going to find a way to embrace marijuana and make it something that's palatable to the masses, it is here.
Right. Right.
And, you know, there have been private groups and private chefs that have still skirted around any type of legislation and are still throwing private parties because they classify it as private. That's a very big thing. You could there's no shortage of 420 chefs that are throwing these private parties, and I myself throw private parties at residences. And I mean, I've done everything from tiny little birthday parties in folks' basements all the way on up to 100-person penthouse parties here in the city even. And it's not ever an issue as long as you have your allowance from the residence or the place that you're doing it in. So those things are happening, and it is a real thing. We just have to be careful about how we're going about it in the future. And I think that there's going to be a big kind of butting of heads between folks that want to keep doing it on the underground scene versus people that want to get licenses, right? Licenses are expensive and they're time consuming. So I'm curious to see how underground these things are going to stay going forward. And we're here to kind of bridge that gap and to get people in the light again.
So there was some news on that. So the CCB did release an official email with some guidance that is being further clarified about private consumption events. So they basically released a letter, an email to all of the MME license holders that said, if you want to have if you would like to sponsor a private consumption event, we have these questions. 1, how does this not violate any local or state ordinances? 2, how are you going to not exceed the limit that you're able to have in possession while you're preparing the products for consumption? So they had a few questions that at the last CCB meeting, the Chamber of Cannabis, which is a new association, worked with Connect on crafting a reply that we submitted via public comment to ask if you can further define some of these things that were in that initial email so that we are able to start producing the compliant sponsored private events, which I think is going to open it up for just what we're looking to do eventually, which is public venues that will be able to replicate the same format from these private events, which is safe, compliance, everyone gets there safe, everyone gets home safe, they have a good time inside. So I'm hoping that we should be getting an answer back soon within the next few weeks. And then hopefully we'll be able to pull off one of the first fully legal, fully sponsored, and fully compliant private cannabis events here soon.
Yeah, that's going to be great. And Mark, it's going to open up a whole field for you in another direction for hospitality training.
Yeah, it seems like there's synergy somewhere along the way, drinking and smoking and eating and having a good time. I mean, it seems like it, and smiling, and everyone's having hospitality. I think that's a great path to put the synergy together. So congratulations to all you guys in putting this together and being the pioneers and the ringleaders and the trendsetters. Jimmy and I both opening our own businesses, and we know it's not an easy thing, or else everyone would do it. So especially when you're fighting laws like the health department or the Commission on Post-Secondary Education, there's a lot of things going on. So congratulations to all you guys on that. So
absolutely,
thank you.
Much appreciated.
I'm gonna ask a question and kind of jump maybe a couple steps ahead. Is Jen, if we get this on some party somewhere along the way, is this ever going to be something seen in a casino?
I hope so. I think. How
come we don't have it now? How about that?
Federal legal. It's
federal, right?
Yes. Yeah, it's federal legalization. So if you hold a federally regulated privileged license, which would be gaming, there's like a list of licensure, adult entertainment. There's quite a few on the list that you can't have cross. So people who own a gaming license can't also have cannabis crossover. So to have the consumption inside the casinos, I think we're definitely further away than a private standing venue, but I know they have interest. As soon as they're able to, of course, they're going to want it, because I met with some executive leadership from some of the casinos and kind of asked the same question. Hey, when this is available, are you going to be interested in doing it? And of course, the casino's main goal is to have enough offerings that their guest stays on property. So I think that certain venues who are more keen to the demographic that maybe would be cannabis consumers are going to be all over it. I think other properties who are maybe more of a different clientele or demographic would be less keen to offer it. But what I think is going to be the most exciting is letting the individual properties choose. We want to be a consumption casino or we don't, where right now they don't really have the option to do that.
Wow. No, great answer. And Andrew, I got another question about you. You said you've done so many events. How would somebody go about it? And what exactly do you, like, if they want to have an event, do they contact you and your company? I love the name of your company, by the way, too. That's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, Top Shelf Bud Tending is the name of the company. We've been doing, like I said, these private events since 2014 in Colorado is where we started. So we've expanded out. We were recently featured on Viceland with the rapper 2 Chainz. We got to smoke him out and show him a good time here in Vegas in a $30 million mansion on the west side of town. And that was a super good time. I think it's season 3, episode 13 on that, if you wanted to check that out. But as far as getting one of your parties booked, we have anything from a very basic $500 tier of service for just the bud tenders to come and serve at your event, all the way on up to a $25,000 package that includes a full Vegas vacation. So it is non-elegant or as crazy as you want to take it. We can definitely do it for you. But my site, topshelf-budtending.com. And then once you're there, can figure out everything you need to about what we do, and we can get you booked up and get your full consultation.
That's awesome. And then is it like
podcast for you?
What's that?
A future podcast for you.
No doubt.
Hey, if you ever need a beer or wine education to go along with it, I'm your guy. I do those on the side. So
that is a fantastic idea. We actually do, which is crazy to even say. It sounds ridiculous, but we do craft bong water. So just like how a bartender would shake up a cocktail, we have craft bong waters that they actually make in front of you, use their shakers, pour it into the bong for you before you consume. And then your first hit has all of the elements and taste of the water that we're crafting for you. So amazing. Even just small little things like that bring that touch of flair and hospitality. We have bud tenders that are throwing the bongs around. So we have flare tenders that can
flare tenders
after throwing the glass pieces around. So with COVID, it's kind of changed things up on how we do some of these things. Obviously, we're only doing single-use pipes or single-use items. If people want to throw events, we can do very, very small micro events right now, but COVID's definitely put a huge dent in my business right now. And it sucks just like everyone else is going through. But I really think I've had a lot of inquiries for, next year and beyond, a lot of weddings, really trying to get it off the ground. So we'll see. And I kind of I forgot to jump in on one of the comments about the casino side of things. Another issue, and I know, Mark, you're probably very familiar with this, dram shop laws. And cannabis, we don't have anything related to that. And we've always said we needed gram shop laws in order to keep us protected against serving somebody. So if I serve someone and they get into an accident or something happens, there's really not been any precedent set on what happens when you get sued or if you get sued. So it's kind of a scary thing with that. And a lot of insurance providers have been kind of tiptoeing around those things. So they need to get a lot of that figured out too before we start going on a large scale where you're getting, thousands of people in, hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people into Vegas to consume cannabis at these event spaces, because you don't know what their experience is like with cannabis. You don't know tolerances. And we have a lot of things to mitigate that. But insurance is another huge hurdle that we've had to deal with going forward.
Yeah, I can't imagine. In Nevada, you may or may not be familiar with that. If you serve alcohol, you have to get an alcohol awareness card, which means you're trained on recognizing, drunk people and checking IDs and things like that, of which there's no talk of your world whatsoever. But I think that having those kind of helps out with the, insurance and all the litigation on the back end, so maybe that's something that needs to be incorporated.
Yeah, we have a few training protocols already in place. I actually had an entire website. It's almost the same thing that say a ServSafe or a TAM card, or like you're saying, all of these programs and protocols in place. We have it already built out. We just haven't found the right partner to move forward with that to get it into the establishments.
Yeah, so these are all things that are everything that Connect is working on. Being able to put forth, it's a cliche statement, but the gold standard for cannabis is what Nevada strives to be, right? So we're interested and excited to help set that precedent for the consumption space. With everything from the private events to the large scale events, they all need to have the same amount of safety. And I think with COVID now coming into the scene, it's more important than ever. It's like the first virus that we've thought about it this much. But, you know, like Andrew said, he's seen some pretty gnarly stuff. I've seen some pretty gnarly stuff where people are not taking safety into mind. One of my like favorite analogies that I always tell people is, could you imagine coming into my restaurant and I take the last guy's whiskey and just toss the ice, put new ice in and give it to you? Like, would you be okay with that? Absolutely not. So why would I expect that same level of service from a pipe or a water bong or whatever it is? So those are things that we're excited to do, like Andrew said, serve safe, alcohol awareness. We want to replicate those programs. Andrew already had, like he said, a very robust training program built out that does certify people to be able to do this. Just one more quick thing. I just recently retook the TAM test, the alcohol awareness test. I took it for myself at the restaurant because I wanted to be able to pour my own drinks at the beginning of COVID. So I retook the test. And one of the things I thought was so crazy, like they bang into your head during the TAM test, is that alcohol, the first sign of intoxication is lowered inhibitions. And I always said to myself, you know, if we weren't here making sure that these cannabis venues are also aware of the fact that our guest is probably consuming other things, who is looking out for that, right? Like, we want to make sure that every one of these venues has the same guidelines. You have to make sure you're doing this. You have to make sure you're checking this. You have to make sure, you know, like Andrew had stuff on there. What else have you already consumed today? Have you had alcohol today? Like, these are intake questions that I feel should be done before we're maybe giving someone a 90% dab of concentrates or a 10 milligram edible. They've never had edibles before. They've been drinking at the pool all day. Now we have a bachelorette party who's coming to the cannabis club to just do a bunch of edibles. There has to be concrete gold standard of guidelines for that.
And working in the legal side inside of dispensaries, bud tending there as well. I mean, I have experience with the private parties, but I also do have experience on the operational side of dispensing. There would be times we would sell an edible to somebody, even in Vegas. 2-3 hours later, they called and said, "Hey, this edible's not doing anything. Like, you ripped me off. I need to come back and return these and get my money back." And we're like, "No, we didn't rip you off. Like, they're tested, they're pure, they're made with homogeneity in mind." And they proceed to eat 2 or 3 more. And we get another call 5 hours later, and they're asking what hospital to go to because they're freaking out. Right. So amplify this in an environment where people are consuming and taking everything to the extreme in excess like they do in Vegas. And we just have to be careful. You know,
no, you're right. And what you were saying going back, Andrew, for what the programs you have and what Jen, you were mentioning, it kind of falls what I do every day for the food world. That helps with insurance policies, because I used to have to go testify all the time. Risk assessment programs.
Correct.
Okay. When an insurance company hears that you have risk management can control, it helps out on premiums. It helps out on the world. It's just like the food code. That's why I see a lot of similarities here. You know what I mean with going. And then another thing is what we were mentioning, which made me think, and I had a little bit of a light bulb in my head that came up. We also are dealing with here in Southern Nevada and pretty much all over the world, hookah, right? Yep. Okay. You're smoking the hookah, right? Health code says as long as it's the fruit, because then it's edible. You see where I'm going with that? Okay. Not saying that you can smoke one of the edible cookies. I'm just saying, you know what I mean? There's just another angle that may work into any of these codes out there, you know, because like you said, it's once someone takes the lead on it and then you get on a local front and you start putting all these ideas in place. Well, if the hookah has this and they have risk assessment, how they clean everything, and we're doing this and we're going to do something similar to that, whatever it is. I'm just, you know, just talking. And then we're having an edible, but we can smoke this edible, which that's out already, right? But it could be an edible that you can consume or smoke, that kind of deal. Okay. What is your risk assessment program on that? and is it in it's all about a regulation to be set forth, and then now you work within that regulation, just like you guys do. There's not one thing that you guys, none of you have mentioned, well, here's the regulations, okay? And we're doing this because we're not following the regulation. No, it's totally opposite. You are in line with the regulations, and you're help creating the regulations as we move forward. And it's just going to be such a big industry that's coming up here. That's going to be on all different angles. I see it. I didn't want to get involved in the very beginning. When me and Jen talked, well, a couple years ago, right, Jen? I says, I want to wait because, I do food code. And like I mentioned what it does, I want to wait till we have a state standard. Okay. So then now we're in state, because now the liability is a little bit less. Yes, I know, Aaron, we got federal too. I know that. But now we got something that we can go by, right? Then when I inquired, and now I got that little thing that says, well, hemp, right? I mean, whatever the difference is, you guys know better than me. Okay. It could be verbiage. It could be actual, like you were mentioning. Okay. Well, that opens up another world, right? Is there really a regulation to follow that? Well, okay. Well, I don't think they have one, right? So who's going to create that? You see what I'm doing? I'm bringing it forward to you because I'm saying, look, I got this guy, Jimmy, who's an REHS guy, right? He's a registered environmental health specialist, national, the whole thing. He's all the food guy. Okay. Now we have the regulations because we're doing this with the state, but you don't have anything local that based on a code. And we want to make sure that we follow the code. We want to help create the code. Yeah. You see where I'm going with this? This is where I think it's going to go. And then you grab when it starts getting bigger. Well, now we know a hospitality company that can teach people the hospitality way of the way of the world that's going to be, handling it. I mean, it's just going to grow. This is where I see it going. And I applaud you guys for doing exactly what you're doing, because I'm with it 100% and I see where it goes. And I don't jump on the bandwagon of many things, because a lot of people have these ideas that are far too much. And I see that it's not going to fall into things, but this is going to fall into some type of code moving forward. Okay. And I see it happening. And that's why I want to jump in, and whatever expertise I can offer, I'd love to do it.
And I think you're smart for doing so, getting in as early as you can and studying these things constantly. You're not only going to make connections moving forward, but knowing this inside and out is going to be huge moving forward, because not only are the fines hefty if you don't know what's going on, right. There are legal implications for this because it is an intoxicant, just like alcohol, right? They're different, obviously. And in some cases, cannabis can even be much more risky to deal with. But I think folks like you, both of you gentlemen, there's great opportunity for those traditional skill sets moving into cannabis, because people get so caught up in the cannabis part, they're forgetting about all the other stuff, right?
Yes.
Like, I like to think this, at least. Jen and I we put hospitality first, and then we grab what cannabis we can and integrate it in with the regulations, because hospitality is the base to everything that we're doing. And if you look past that, it's not going to be a good guest experience, for one, but you're going to miss the mark on everything else. Mm-hmm. So I think with what you guys are doing, getting into it right now, it's good. Even just looking at the regulations and paying attention and seeing where the trends are going, that alone is going to position you for success later on. And this is a long game, man. This is going to be a 5 to 10 year process, and you have to look at it as a long game. The amount of times I wanted to just hang it up and throw it away. I mean, just this morning, I had something happen with my website, and I was about ready to just be done with it. I was ready to throw it all away because it's, like you said, it's tough, man. It's tough.
It really is.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But I love it. So I keep coming back to it. And I think that there's a lot of passion and a lot of people doing this. And your traditional skill sets are very much so needed.
Appreciate that.
And that's the thing is that this isn't going anywhere. Cannabis isn't going anywhere. So we all need to embrace it. However,
essential.
It's an essential business. Exactly.
World, right? they're using the CBD. I mean, all this is even in the medical world. I mean, we're not even touching that. Okay. But think about it. I mean, what other worlds? I mean, even I know veterinarians use it. I mean, I've heard crazy things, people using their dog's prescription for them. I mean, I've heard all kinds of crazy things, but I'm just saying though, there's each industry is going to be, relying on something like this because it's going to affect everything,
I want to just touch on something that you kind of just said, Jimmy, which is the medical side of it. So we, even in this conversation, have talked a lot about the tourism or recreational side of consumption of the cannabis. Maybe it's not a medical thing. Well, I do think that we need to always remember that the whole basis for every single thing that we're even doing or talking about today is rooted in the medical programs that our original patient advocates in this state and others have been fighting for decades, right? So the groundwork that they've laid is why we get to be here today. And I think sometimes we have to keep them in mind too, which is they also need a safe place to consume. They need safe access. They need to be able to take their cannabis in a medical dosage and not have another legal implication because of that. Not to tangent too far, but one of the things that we also work on reform for is DUI laws. If you're a medical cannabis patient, you're sometimes consuming hundreds of milligrams of THC per day. And then if you have 0.2 milligrams in your system, I believe it is, you're already over the legal limit to be able to drive. So with all of the work that we're doing, yes, the fun part is that we get to throw a party at the end. But what we're really doing this for is for safe access and to not create more criminals out of the current laws that we have. So it's working backwards. It's Andrew said it, I think. It's taking what we know and then adding the cannabis onto it and seeing where we can fit in to make the most reform happen.
Wow. I mean, this is excellent. And you know what? I really enjoy having you guys on. And I wouldn't mind doing this again. Let's wait a little bit. Let's do it again. You know what I mean? I have no problem having you guys on because, again, I know I'm going to try to
Let's revisit after they deschedule marijuana in the coming months, hopefully, if Biden ends up getting officially certified, which, I mean, not to get too political, let's be honest. So once that happens, I would love to be back on and discuss some of those changes the change in federal law will allow us at a state level to then embrace.
And you know what? I did put it on real quick because I did get a gentleman who put something on, and I'm not sure this one right here, the Broken Kitchen. I'm not
Kitchen?
Yeah. Is that do they, I don't know if they have anything to do with, the what we're talking about, but they said, check us out. So I'm trying to think if that's maybe something to do with what they're doing. I don't know. I don't know if it's here. I'm just saying, I don't know if it's local. I'm just saying it came through.
I mean, there's some weird things going on right now, just in general. Like Aaron was saying with the hemp and CBD coming from hemp specifically, they're finding ways of extracting brand new psychoactive compounds from the plant from hemp, still classified as hemp, and it still gets you high. There's something called Delta 8 THC. It's not classified as a compound that's against the Farm Bill because it comes from hemp still, but you can eat gummies with Delta 8 in them and they will still get you high. So people are cooking with Delta 8, still getting people high and doing it in a legal way. And there are hundreds of compounds that we're still discovering that people are kind of just skating around and getting a hold of. So it's always changing, and it's just crazy to see. I saw somebody come up to me with these Delta 8 gummies, and I'm like, what the hell is Delta 8? So you look into it more, and you find out it's actually a type of THC.
Yeah, see?
And some states are working backwards on that too. I know a friend of mine is in North Carolina in the CBD business, and it's Canna CBD. Give them a little shout out there. And that state is working to now repeal Delta 8 because just what Andrew said, people started using new molecules, extracting new, well, not new to the industry, but new for regulations, and then putting them out for public consumption under the guise of the hemp bill. So some states are now working backwards and saying, wait, not this. No, it's just about CBD, just CBD. Back up.
This is a wonderful, wonderful subject. I mean, we can talk for hours because it's so interesting and it goes in so many directions, guys, and it goes everywhere within whatever industry you want to talk about, like I mentioned. But, we do something, guys, that loosens you up even more. And Mark usually takes this part of it and it makes you guys happy. Okay. And it makes you guys really think of something different. Okay. Off the wall. I'll let Mark do it. And it's excellent. It's a question. We never back you in a corner, which I promised you guys. And you see, we don't do that. It's all whatever you have to do. But this is something that you're going to think about. And I guarantee you're going to think about it and say, oh my God, how many things. And I know Jen's going to have a million scenarios, right, Mark? Go for it, Mark.
Jen's answer is going to be very intriguing for sure.
So, yes.
Oh boy.
Guys, this is a question that we ask. We have a lot of viewers from around the world, a lot of around the country. It's a question we ask everyone because everyone we have on the show has some serious Las Vegas ties. And I know you said you're from Colorado, Andrew. So give us a Las Vegas story, a story that's happened here in Las Vegas, whether it be like a gambling story, a celebrity interaction, or just something that's just happened here that if you told your friend or before you moved here that it happened to you, they would look at you like you were like a crazy person. But now that we're sitting here and we're in the industry, it's something that's just second nature to us, and that's just a normal Wednesday. So,
man, I don't know. I've been to so many parties and so many places and around so many people. I still, to me, my surreal moment for Vegas was, like I said, when I served 2 Chainz on the show, man, going through gates of a rich neighborhood. Like I grew up very poor, right? Going through gates of a very rich neighborhood, walking through a $32 million mansion that was designed by a yacht designer, seeing things that I've never seen before in my life and seeing fixtures that cost more than my car. That alone was just mind blowing to me. And then standing next to a rapper and serving that man dab after dab after dab and him liking it. That to me was like the definitive Vegas. And then, I don't know. It was just an unexplainable thing, man. There was nothing more. I don't think I could top it, dude. There's just nothing I could do. And if we would have went out to the club that night and had a few drinks together, that might have been able to top it. But like, that right there was the highlight of my Vegas career so far. I've only been here 3 years, so I don't have a ton of stories, but I'm sure we'll make more.
That's a great story. Aaron, how about for you?
Oh man, y'all are putting me to the test over here.
But you're smiling, right?
One. Oh, I'm smiling because I'm cycling through some of these stories. So before I took the bar, went to law school and took the bar. A prior lifetime, as Jen mentioned, I used to work with Jen at the Light Group way back when. That 21, 22 years old, and one of my jobs was a mood director in one of the clubs. So my job was to just dress up, go get everybody drunk, drink tickets, bottles of vodka. That was me pouring it on everybody. Yeah. And so, no, that's my smile is I'm just cycling through all the different celebrities and DJs that I've come in contact with. But as far as a story that just stands out for whatever reason, it was one night after we were at the Bank nightclub at Bellagio, RIP to the Bank, missed that place. I went out and started playing blackjack, and then all of a sudden I was with one of my girlfriends, and she was just standing behind me watching, and so I was just playing, and all of a sudden somebody pulls out the chair next to me, sits down, and I take a look over, and I'm like, oh shit, that's Lauren Conrad. At the time, that was like Laguna Beach, The Hills, very popular show when it was on. And so, we just get to chatting. And then my girlfriend behind me, she whispers on the other side in my ear, she goes, is that Lauren Conrad? And then she clearly didn't whisper too quietly. Lauren turns over and she said, yeah, it's me. Would you like a picture? And, just nothing too crazy where I'm getting celebrities, bong rips or hits of concentrate, but nonetheless, just isolated experiences here and there. The list goes on. I could name 10 other experiences just like that.
That's great. That's great.
All right, Jen, your turn.
Uh-oh.
Okay. So, all right. So yes, I grew up from a baby in the Las Vegas nightlife industry, and I definitely have a million stories about that, but I'm going to tell, I think, a cannabis story. And I also wanted to say I was with Andrew the night that we went over to that mansion.
Why did I forget that you were there?
One of the best things you forgot to mention was that with our great friends from Las Vegas Cannagars, Connect was actually... Yeah, Connect was able to gift to 2 Chainz a $20,000 Cannagar. Like I said, I'm going to shout out again, Las Vegas Cannagars. They rolled up like the most decadent Cannagar for him, made him a beautiful box, stamped the top. That was awesome.
The size of my forearm.
Yeah, it was huge. So, but that's not the story I want to tell. So I actually want to tell like a totally different story. So one of the things that I thought was so incredible about the city of Las Vegas was our work with getting that consumption ordinance passed in 2019. So for me, one of the moments that like I'll never forget in my entire life is when we were sitting in City Hall after working on this bill or ordinance for so long, not knowing what was going to happen. We have the council's divided on the vote. Mayor Goodman, because her family owns a license, she's not able to vote, so she steps back. Lois Tarkanian, who we weren't sure was going to vote yes or no, has to call in from the phone because she was so sick that she wasn't able to appear for the meeting. So we're in there and we're down to like the last vote of this is going to happen or not. And it's Lois Tarkanian on the phone. And Bob Coffin, our amazing city councilman who put this whole thing into motion, he was actually stepping down after this. So this was like one of the last things he was voting on. And so Lois is on the phone and we're at the split vote and she's sick, so you can't really hear her. And then Bob says, "How do you vote, Lois?" She can't hear her. "Lois, how do you vote? We all already voted." And then she goes, "I'll vote yes." And like the whole place just erupts from this little tiny squeak of a voice coming out of poor Lois Tarkanian. And she was ill. And like, thank you so much for showing up that day for us to pass that vote. And I said, wow, out of all the things that I felt like were accomplishments in this city, that was one of my most amazing moments, was that we were able to work with our local representatives, have access to them that I don't think maybe you normally do, but they were willing to speak with us, willing to meet with the cannabis industry. They wanted to know more. They wanted to learn why they should pass this or not. And then we actually got it freaking passed in the very last second. So for me, that's my Vegas story, was creating effective change and getting to be there to hear that like monumental thing happen.
Jen's story is better than mine.
Excellent. It's great. Everybody's story. We've had crazy stories. I mean, we've had one where a chef said he was working on a line and a guy that he was serving came and gave him a $7,000 watch. We've had so many. Even my story. Jen would love this one real quick. Remember back in the day, I think it was Jet. Okay. I'm doing my thing. Remember they had Pitbull? Remember Pitbull was doing something for Jet back in the day? Okay.
Probably New Year's or something.
Right. So I'm walking in doing my lovely inspection thing before it opens because I want to do it before. And I'm walking through, and then all of a sudden, you know, I heard the music and I recognized it. And then I'm saying, I know that music. Okay. So I walk into the walk-in, I open the door, and there's a birthday cake. I guess it was his birthday or something, right? So I turn around, and who do I walk face to face with? Pitbull. And here's my big experience with him. You know what he said to me? "Where's the bathroom?" That's my story. Okay, that was my
There you go. All right, that makes me feel better, Jimmy. Thank you.
Yeah, there you go. You see, I had to throw that one in there. But guys, look, we really thank you for being on. I love this approach. I love where it's going. I want to be involved, you know, for sure. We're going to do this again for sure. Like you said, we'll wait for a little bit. You guys, Jen, you let me know, hey, this is a good time. We'll do it again. I have no problem. If you guys want to do a different day that works for you, let me know. It's no big deal. We'll make it happen. All right, guys. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jimmy. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Congratulations on all the success, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Great things you guys are doing. I appreciate it. Talk to you guys soon. Thank you very much.
Have a good rest of your day, guys.
Bye-bye, guys.
Thank you.
There you are. I did that again.
So
there we go. We had a real good guy, good people, good cause, you know, and I'm happy about it. They're very good people, Mark. and we know we go back with Jen a long, long time. I think it was a good podcast, a different direction, but hey, it's got food and beverage in it. So I think it's a good approach, a good start with this industry,
Yeah.
So
it's ongoing, and it's always I think Aaron said several times, is that it's always changing and it's evolving, and they're part of the change. So that's got to be a very interesting perspective to do anything in life. So
absolutely. What you got going on next week, pal?
I'm doing a training for the new restaurant on Sahara and Decatur. It's called Mariposa. I'm going to be training all the staff over there. We helped hire a few weeks ago, and we're getting everyone in to show them all the tricks and show them all the RHI materials. And it should be some of the best restaurant experience you're going to find in town. So that'll be fun. So
excellent. So I may or may not see you next week, right?
Correct.
Okay, whatever it is, no problem. Well, anyway, Mark, thank you very much. We'll be in touch, pal. Everything's the same for me. So we just keep rolling along, buddy. All right. I'll talk to you soon, buddy.
Bye. Thanks
Have
for
a
watching.
great weekend. Bye-bye.